Here and just a quick overview of what we are going to do. Rightware is a company that does benchmarks and user interfaces, and we have been doing benchmarks since 2004 while we were still part of FutureMark. And let me run by our benchmarking development process. We have this program which consists of 25 different companies. We have your Qualcomm, NVIDIA's, Imagination Technologies, TI's, every major chip manufacturer, all the OEMs, Samsung's, Nokia's, Apple's, Rings. So basically all of these 25 different companies, they belong to our benchmark development program, where we communicate with every one of them in order to create an objective benchmark. And there has been a sort of like misconception that these guys would be battering each other out while pushing for their architecture and having our benchmark being optimized for that. But that's not the case. Every one of these companies, they want to have an objective benchmark which is developed by a third party, and that's the only way to keep the playing field level. And that's where we come in. We produce this benchmark with our benchmark development program, and usually takes 9 to 12 months depending on the product's size and objective. So, why benchmarking? Well, you have to have an objective way to measure performance. I mean, most of the benchmark focus on the gaming areas, but also user interface is coming much more popular nowadays as an area of benchmarking. And what you need to have is the objective and reliable way to get as much information of the GPU, CPU, and whatever. And also you need to see that when we have a 3D benchmark, it doesn't necessarily focus on the GPU, it also focuses on CPU. So you have to have many different benchmarks in order to get the whole view of the product. So some benchmark are CPU heavy, some benchmark are GPU heavy. And well, we started with the graphics, of course, but we have moved to UIs and OS benchmarking in the recent years. And like has been discussed many times today, you need to have more than one benchmark when you're evaluating products, since it will give a much more better view, overall view of the product itself. And synthetic benchmarks have been, they have been a bit of a pain, since you can always optimize for those. And of course, you should take into account the extensions of the product itself, since as for instance, developing our OpenGLES benchmark, the way we do is that we take the specification from Kronos and do a benchmark according to that. And as you know, Kronos is this big non-profit conglomerate that all of these Qualcomms and NVIDIAs belong to. So it's also objective in that way, since they also want to have a clear and objective API. And well, what's the benefit of benchmarking? You get a good view on the specific API, and when benchmark usually come out, they have a much more heavier workloads than the games of that time. So it also stresses the GPU in a very relevant way, and you can really squeeze everything out of your device. And of course, there is no platform specific optimizations which might hinder the objectivity of the benchmarks. And well, here's our most popular benchmark. It's Basemark ES 2.0 Taishi, which is on Android market, and it was formerly known as 3D Mobile ES 2.0. This was while we were still part of FutureMark. And like I said, this is a gaming benchmark, but we are also bringing out Basemark GUI, which is a graphical user interface. And this benchmark will focus on different areas other than gaming, and we will be launching it within a few weeks. So stay tuned for that. And as for objectivity of the benchmarking results, we have also this database, which is a public one. So every run records to our database, which we will then inspect and put it out there, meaning that we have a wide variety of different devices, and of course, as time goes on, we will put out more and more benchmarks in there. Currently, we have Daichi and browser mark in there, which public can run and put their scores in there. And this has been, very good for the industry, but also for the end users, as they can quickly take a look on which one is performing the best, and then for browser or for graphical user interfaces or for gaming. But one thing we have, advanced to nowadays is the system benchmarking, which is we have this BrowserMark OS, BaseMark OS, sorry. So what it does is that it takes the whole set of different areas of benchmark other than graphics, and it will run them in the Android framework. So this will get you a good overall view of the tablet or phone's performance, which tells you how fast it can play a video, how fast you can create a calendar event and delete that event. So basically it allows you a good overall view of the specific device, and it's also very, very objective in that way. Well, there you see it. Currently this is not available on an Android market, but we are putting it out there later during this year. This is now distributed exclusively with media and of course our PDP members. So what it does is that you have these different small areas like scaling images. You can take a different size images and measure how well the product is. The phone, for instance, is doing in those areas, and of course the compression, chip compression, uncompression, that kind of operations. And well, one thing about Android is that it's a non-deterministic OS. So at any stage, OS might decide that something more important is happening in there, and thus it affects the test itself. And this is also the same reason why there is very, very difficult to produce a battery test on Android framework. As the power goes lower and lower, the Android will fall back to its original plan, which is to say battery, and thus stopping the test itself. So you can never ever run out the whole battery within Android framework with this kind of benchmark. And well, we were discussing about browser benchmarking. What we are now doing is that we are developing next generation BrowserMark, which is going to be launched during August. And before launch, we are putting it out to every member of media so they can play with the benchmark, run the devices they have in hand, and give us your feedback on that. What we are aiming to do is that we will focus on HTML5, WebGL, all these kind of new and exciting areas, since the way we see is that it is moving more towards the cloud performance, so to speak, so that people are running stuff from the web and not necessarily on the loaded on the device. So this is why we are focusing on from the gaming and user experience perspective, is the WebGL, Canvas, and HTML5, which is when you play a web game, for instance. These are very, very important factors, and people should take into account that when you run different browsers, they perform differently. For instance, WebGL and Canvas might run differently on IE, Internet Explorer, than they run on Safari, for instance, or Chrome. As for BrowserMark, this is definitely our next big public product, and we are happy to give you guys a sneak peek on that one when we advance more to the release candidate. And the way BrowserMark works is that we have our public database, which also collects all the information of the product one. So basically, when you run your device, it will communicate to our Rightware database and upload the results in there. So everyone can, compare how the device performs against some other phone or a bigger tablet. And of course, there's the corporate version, which is much more wider, let's say that way. And well, here's how we see browser benchmarking coming together. Is that we have our GPU guys here in our PDP members, but then we have every major browser company also with us. When we are developing this benchmark, we are discussing with Apple, with Google, Microsoft, Opera, Mozilla, and everyone is on board for this development. So this is going to be definitely a good benchmark in the way that every browser company is happy with it, and it will be an objective one, since some of these current browser-focused benchmarks are developed by some companies that are connected to, let's say, for instance, Mozilla Corporation or anything like that. So what you need is a good objective way to measure the performance of the browser. And of course, we are focusing on end users here also, so you guys can see how well it performs in real-life use cases. What we have been discussing here also is that OpenGL 3.0 is coming. So what I'm now going to show you is a sneak peek of our product, and well, more information will follow in following weeks when Kronos is going to make this more public. But anyways, here's a quick sneak peek. And there you have it. That was short and sweet, and now we get back on schedule. Do you have any questions regarding the BrowserMark or the GPU? Yeah.
I know that we would love to use a lot more of your benchmarks, but we've been having trouble getting in touch with you guys and getting a hold of them. How do we get them so that we can try them out and use as many of them as possible?
I'll give you my business card, so we're all set up with that.
Okay.
Any other questions? Excellent. I'll be here the whole day, so feel free to come by and ask me.
Great. Teemu, thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming all the way over here for